Um, yeah, this afternoon we're going to kind of push forward into looking at climate change through two different lenses, which are the lenses of how we can live with the changes that are afoot and are coming, and then also actually the issue of the emissions themselves that are causing the trouble, what we can do about that. And we'll look again, so say this weekend is that big scale picture about looking at it from the global, but also to the local, setting up for weekend two further down the line, looking at Scotland. But before we do that, I thought I'd introduce one of the really difficult concepts that I find in this area is the notion that we need to have urgent long-term thinking. And that's a paradox. Urgent is we need to do something now, but long-term, it needs to be strategic. It needs to be thought about, because the changes that are coming really are coming in over decades. Some of them are already here, but they're going to build up over decades. And generally, as a society, as people, individuals, we're not really good at that urgent long-term thinking. But the reason why it's important is that the people in Scotland that are going to be most affected by the types of changes that we're talking about, ironically, can't join us formally because they're too young. They're the children, and that idea of trying to acknowledge and give voice to those future generations and how they feel about the decisions that we're going to make now that will affect them is a really important part for the Assembly to try and wrestle with. So one of the ways that we want to acknowledge that and to hear those voices is to let you hear from the Children's Parliament. The Children's Parliament is a group of 100 people. It's kind of almost a parallel kind of world to our world of the Assembly, based around more of a human rights kind of perspective. But we've asked them to kind of consider and talk to us about the issue of climate change and what it means to them. And interestingly enough, there's a bit at the end of this presentation that they offer a similar kind of word cloud of ideas, of hopes and fears, very similar to the one that you did. So it'll be interesting to compare what we thought, the Assembly members thought that we saw right back that long time ago yesterday morning, with what they've come up with. So if we could run the Children's Parliament film, that would be wonderful. Thank you. That's an interesting, timely reminder, really, about that idea of that many of the changes that are going to be most acute are going to be imposed on that generation. So hearing their views is critical. And also, I like Ben's comment that sometimes children have good ideas. So we're now going to push on into looking at that climate change is happening and that we're starting to feel the bite of it in certain places. And so how can we live with climate change? So regardless of what we do about reducing emissions, it's at least some element of climate change is inevitable. It's locked into the system. So it's and we're already seeing that as we had yesterday in some parts of the planet. So what can we do about it? And indeed, what is being done about adapting to it? So we're going to hear now from Kate Crowley, who we heard from yesterday. Kate is lecturer in climate risk at the University of Edinburgh, and she has made this presentation for us.
Sorry, were we going to hear from Kate first, or?
Oh, sorry, you're absolutely right. I think Kate is here. Sorry.
Hi, I'm here.
I'm sorry to cut you out, Kate. I apologize.
No, not at all, Iain. Don't worry. I snuck in. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so today I've got a slightly different hat on. I teach about impacts, but I'm also teach my students about adaptation as well. So I get the opportunity to actually talk about all the things we can do to try and overcome some of the hazards we face at the moment. So I've put a presentation together, and yesterday I mentioned that I've had the opportunity to work with a few communities around the world, and this presentation highlights a few of those communities. So again, like yesterday, more than happy to chat about that afterwards, and I hope you find it interesting. Thanks.
Brilliant. Well, thank you again, Kate, for that brilliant presentation on adaptation. So how do we live with climate change? In a moment, we're going to go into breakout rooms, and we'll be starting now to really build an understanding of the types of change that are needed and are possible. Just to let you know, we do have some of our evidence leads with us again here this afternoon, who you can request to join the breakout group. So of course we have Kate and Iain, but we also have someone called Dave Ray, who is a professor of carbon management and education at the University of Edinburgh, who we'll be hearing from a little bit later around mitigation. But we've got 3 of them on call should you want them to come to your rooms. Okay, so I think it's just to open the breakout rooms now, please.